virtual investor quarters and REI live classes. I am so excited to have Paul with us today with PropStream. He has so many exciting things coming out. And if you aren't familiar with PropStream, it is a similar alternative to the MLS, but it's so much better in so many levels because you have access to the entire nation. And I know that Paul will tell us a lot more about the new things coming out and how to utilize this product.
Hey guys, sorry for the technical difficulties if my camera cuts out here, but you'll be able to hear me, you'll be able to see my screen, which is the most important. We're going to go through kind of some basic overview function of PropStream. Anybody here live on the call, if you have any questions, let Catherine know, then we can kind of answer some stuff, maybe run through a live example or not, whatever you guys kind of want here in this half hour here. But let's dive in. So this is PropStream. Like you mentioned, it is, if you will, kind of an alternative to your MLS. For you agents out there, obviously MLS, it's vital to what you guys do. It's where you post up your properties that you're going to put up for sale. It's where you do your comps. It's all the essential business is done through there, right? But for us investors that don't have that MLS access or are looking maybe to give our team, right? We have maybe team members that we want to give access to some of our tools. PropStream really falls in place as an essential tool. So let's dive in here. Right now we're looking at, I'm out here in California, guys, so that's why it's local to where I am, where it loaded, but it's a nationwide platform. You can search for properties anywhere, right? You can search for properties in your state, in your market, unlimited property search, right? So if you get an address or if you get a lead that's come in, you can throw in your address here on the top. We'll do an example right now. This is kind of local to you guys out there in Florida, so we'll do a Ocala property. We'll do the search. Imagine this came in as a lead, or it came in as a referral, or somebody simply just told you, hey, go check out, property over there. So you throw in that address, you get the initial details here on the right, you hit details, and you get the whole shebang of what's going on, who the property belongs to, who bought it, when they bought it, all the little details, right, that we need in doing our due diligence on a property to understand if we want to buy it, or understand who owns it, or understand how much is owed. In this example, you see kind of the setup of the property. It's a 4.2, 1,400 square feet. You see the lot size when it was built. You'll also get an estimated value that our system provides to you. If you want to compare it to anything, maybe it's comparable to that Zillow value, that Zestimate they have there, but it's a algorithm, right? This means that the computer, based on math calculations, has determined this is the value. But the real cool thing about PropStream is you're not dependent on what a computer generates for you. You can also go into the comps tab and start running your comps as needed for that particular market, right? And this is where maybe your local knowledge of that market really plays in, where you can kind of define what to compare or what not to compare. So for instance, this property here, it's a 4.2. I initially like to compare, apples to apples, right? I want to compare the most like properties. I only want to initially see if there's 4.2s that are very similar of square footage and year build. Right. So I first knocked this down 6 months because I like to look at my comps off of 6 months. Catherine, is that what you run your comps off of as well?
Absolutely, especially now with coronavirus, you want to make sure that you're as close to the purchase date as possible.
Right. And in this case, I've also gone down to 3 months just to see what the most active transactions have been, right? You can use these filters to really inform yourself of what's going on now, what's going on in the past, and really looking at, again, the most comparable properties. That's what comps are ultimately, right? You're comparing the most identical properties to the subject property. So we've gone down to 6 months. This is the default square footage range that the system gives you. You can tighten this up. For instance, we could be plus or minus 100 square feet instead of what it is by default. So let's go 1378 on the low, and we'll go 1578 on the high, right? That's where I personally like to start to see if there's anything within plus or minus 100 square feet. If there isn't, or if there's just too little results, you can open that up. You can open it up 150 plus or minus, or open it up on the high end or low end. You can play with this. And as you get comfortable in a particular market, you'll know what those filters need to be, so you don't have to sit here and contemplate, plus or minus, all this sort of stuff. In my local markets, what I do in my markets is I go automatically to 100. I see here there's only one, so let's open it up maybe a little bit more. We'll go to 1300. We'll maybe go to 16 on the top to see if there's any more. Right now here we got two, right? It opened it up to one more example. These are only 3.2s, right? So anything within that square footage that has sold recently is only a 3.2, right? So for instance, we can look at those that's the sold prices and understand that 3.2s are on average going for 147,500. That starts giving us some understanding, but we want to see, are there any fours, right? Are there any fours in that neighborhood? So let's take our top max out of there and see if anything. Okay, boom, there we go. We see a whole bunch. So what I would suggest there is let's look for exactly the type of layout that we have on our subject property. And along the way, guys, here live in this chat, if you have any questions on what I'm doing, just send them over to Catherine. We can dive into that. So here I'm looking for exactly a property that's plus or minus, well, in this case, 1,300 max of square footage and a 4.2, right? So we have one. This is closer to our subject property. It's much bigger, right? So this is where you're gonna have to start taking this into consideration. Catherine, how do you play something like this when you have kind of like that oddball number, either a high or a low number in your calculation? What do you typically do there?
I look at the pictures to see if it's been rehabbed or not and go from there, because you don't know if it's been rehabbed, then you can use that as an ARV. If the low ball hasn't, then there you go, it's a purchase price.
Right, exactly. You start using what you have available, right? Sometimes you have to kind of paint the picture with the information that's there. And that's why I always say, comping's not an exact science. Of course we like something that we can just look at and boom, there's your number and you go with it. But if you really start dissecting the types of transactions that are occurring, whether they're rehabbed, whether the pictures match the offer price and that sort of stuff, you can really fine tune to get a much more accurate number than you would with a Zestimate or than our assigned value number, those sorts of things. So I definitely think there's a lot of value in understanding what the conditions of those properties, what the conditions of the surrounding properties look like, what the rehabs look like, and all those variables. In addition to that, you also want to take a look at MLS active, right? Because I want to see around this property what's listed around it, right? And what's it look like? So right now with the filters that we had in place, 4.2s, there are no 4.2s on market. Instantaneously, I already know that, right? Because I had those filters there. So I'll probably want to start opening this up. Let's take away the 4s. Let's go down to 3s, right? So this is going to be the 3.2s and up, right? These might be the actives, the only actives that we can compare this one to. In this case, this would be a larger property or a larger in bedroom size, right? So it's an extra bedroom there. There would be possibly more value, but maybe the square footage would offset that, right? So these are kind of the things that you refine in your ability to comp properly as you get much more educated and understand these little tiny variables. Look, the more properties you comp, the more you understand, the more offers that you put out, the more you understand where you need it to be, or if you were right on the money. That's kind of something that happens over time, right? Don't you think, Catherine?
I do. It's definitely an art. So you get better with it every time. And then you also have right here, if they're rehabbed properties, some agents to call to see if their investors are looking for their next deal.
Exactly. So we can also look at, let's show you something, MLS sold, right? So MLS sold shows you all the properties that were sold under the MLS data set. Of course, they do go to public record. Doesn't happen immediately, right? So there's a gap in time there. So that's why we show you two sets of data, but not every sale happens on the MLS. So some transactions are going to happen here on the public record. Some are going to happen on the MLS, which ultimately will record on public record. But we also squinch all the data together in one so that you can get a full, complete picture. you see here, 665 Southeast 56th Ave. This sold on MLS, and obviously it's recorded on public record as well. But if we look at 5601, that's sold on public record, but not on MLS. So you see there's gaps there on the data sets, and if we didn't show them both, you might not have a complete picture of all those transactions in that surrounding area, right? So we give you a ton of information, so you're properly informed, so you know how to put out that offer, right? Or you know intelligently where you need to be when putting out those numbers. Let's move on further here. Anybody in the group have any questions here on the comping section?
I haven't seen any come into the group chat. I will post again if you guys do have questions, just so that we don't get any echoing going.
Let me show you one little kind of super tip here. So we have MLS. Let's see if there's any MLS sold cash. Okay, so there's no cash transactions that happen in the MLS, but if there were, they would be highlighted with this little green for cash. We could then see that they were sold. We could click on the information for the property and see the agent that represented that buyer in a cash transaction. More likely than not, they're going to be a buyer of other properties. So that would be a good way to find active cash buyers, right? That's a good quick way. While you're going through here and comping, if you identify and you see that, hey, look, this was a cash on the MLS, let me reach out to the agent and see if that agent's customer is interested in buying additional properties. So let's move on here on that same topic, cash buyers. So how many times do you guys get a lead, or maybe you get a property locked up, but you're not sure if you have a buyer in that area? If you go to cash buyers quickly while you're comping, you can identify cash buyer frequency. You can volume. I'm sorry, not frequency, volume. You can tell how many transactions are occurring in whichever time frame you need to assess. Meaning, quickly I can go to cash buyers. I can sort by sale date. Let's go from high low here. Give me 1 second. 2000. Let's go the opposite direction. So right here, 5/27/2020 to 1/7/2020. That's 5. And that one wasn't cash because this is in blue. So there's 4 cash transactions that have occurred in the last now 7 months in this general area. Maybe that's great for this market. Maybe that's a lot of cash buys. Maybe that's typical for this market. I've bought down in South Florida where the volumes it's much higher, a lot of cash transactions. So 4 might scare me. 4 might be like, whoa, okay, maybe not enough activity there. Maybe I'll have a hard time selling this property. Just information to help me gauge, how I'm going to sell this, how I'm going to go through that dispositions, portion of the transaction. Or maybe I come in here and I say, hey, 4. Okay, there's 4 cash transactions in the last couple months. I know for sure I can sell this, right? I think it depends on the market and the volumes that are typical for that area. Make sense, guys?
It does. We do have a question. How do you look for failed properties on the MLS?
Well, okay, we can go back into the comps. We can then go into the MLS, and if we go to status, we can just check off failed. Let's take off the sold, add the failed, and this is going to be a mix of stuff that expired or failed for a number of reasons, right? So if we actually click on it, hit details, this will actually give us the information on what occurred here sometimes. Let's take a look at it. And I say sometimes because it's all really kind of dependent on information that's been inputted, right? There's variables. Sometimes we've seen sold pricing be off by a couple numbers, and that's simply because it's fat fingered on the way in from the MLS agent. But by the time it gets to the county, the things have been corrected, the number is actually different. So you have those subtle differences in there. Data can be perfect, but it can also be imperfect because of the human element of input, right? When you come across those things, guys, let us know. We're always kind of trying to improve and make sure we correct anything, even if it's not our fault, and there's a way for us to make sure that that's shown correctly. Let's go to MLS details here that this is loaded up. Failed was a marker for 17 days. One of a kind. Let's see. We can go to listing history, and now it's going to tell you kind of what's going on. This is helpful to understand what's going on with the house. I mean, I've bought houses where they've dealt with an agent for 3 years. It's literally been on and off a market. Price keeps going up or down. They keep adjusting, keep playing. They either don't have an agent really that knows what they're doing. It's probably overpriced. They're just maybe they're agents themselves and they just put it up there and they're just messing it around. Whatever the case is, it's just additional info for you on your due diligence, right? More info for you to know maybe on how to handle or deal in that negotiation, just how to approach the seller perhaps, or maybe not even say anything, but for your own knowledge in knowing how to navigate this particular deal, right? This information can be really handy. So I don't know exactly why this it was withdrawn. Okay, so seller, agent, whatever case, they took it off. That's what happened there. So that's how we can find our fails in the MLS data set.
That is always that area where he was at, where I went through all the pricing, is the second place I go when I look at days on market. If they've been on the market for 60 days or longer, has it been priced incorrectly, and that's the reason it's not moving, or is there something else I need to dig deeper on?
Yeah,
You'll read.
and I mean those fail properties really are great, right? I mean, those are awesome leads to reach out to. It can be a bunch of variables why that was withdrawn, right? Again, it could be the seller, maybe it's been on and off the market. They're frustrated. Maybe they've canceled the contract, or maybe it's the agent and he's realized, in this market I've overpriced. Let's take it off the market for a month or 2 or 3 and adjust and put it back on. Anybody on here that's an agent would know better. I'm not an agent myself. Catherine, you're the expert in that world, right? You're the agent in our conversation here. But yeah, I mean that's how some of those things work there. Let's go to another part of the state here, I think closer to you guys. So we're in Sarasota County. Let's go back. Let's pick a random property here. I want to kind of just wrap up the details section. Anybody have additional questions on the comps area?
I don't see any.
Loading this up. So we've gone through comps. We've shown the multiple data sets. Cash buyers, quick, easy way to identify volume of cash transactions. Neighbors, sometimes we're trying to get a hold of the owner of a property, and the only way is to find out the neighbor. If you're local and you're door knocking, you're going to homes, that's one thing. You can always knock on a neighbor's door. But if you're not, or simply you don't want to go knock on doors, you don't want to go bother people right now with things going on, you can just find that neighbor, identify them on the map. Maybe it's the guy across the street, or maybe all 10 neighbors, or people that you want to reach out to and say, hey, John on 123 Main Street, trying to get a hold of him, or simply put it. Maybe you can offer up a home that you have locked up, right? There's people on streets that would love to buy a second home for their relatives, their mom, their aunt, their sister to live on the same block. That's always a good way to find a buyer as well, right? So neighbors is always a quick, easy way to see your surrounding neighbors. Everything from pre-foreclosures to the divorce is really just a snapshot of this category around the subject property. So if you want to take a look at quick properties based on your filter, however you define that, of high equity, and high equity would be defined here by default 50% and up, or if you want to maybe find properties around the subject property that have liens attached, you can quickly do that here from this window as well. But in a second, I'll jump over to how to actually build lists for your marketing, right? That's how you can actually build a certain type of list, maybe a lien, maybe a property with high equity in liens, and then start marketing to that, right? So lastly, let me just blast through this real quick. Tax information, always important to know how much that's going to be, and transaction history. You look at some properties, they'll have multiple transactions over the last couple of years. They were bought, they were sold. Maybe somebody took out a mortgage, then a second mortgage. All that mortgage history and transaction history is going to be broken down here for you, right? So you have a very good understanding of what's going on, maybe how much they originally bought for or took a loan for, maybe how much they owe left, the estimate of what that may be. All that information here from the details. So very complete, very thorough on any one property. And again, guys, this is unlimited. You could search properties all nationwide, unlimited all month long, right, with your account. So remember that. Now let's go into list building. So let's go to Sarasota County and we'll go into filter. You can do this by county, city. You could also do this by zip code. You could separate up to 5 zip codes by commas and search that way. I like to go large just because that's the nature of my marketing. But depending on what you're doing, maybe you're a smaller, solopreneur, you're really simply just calling a handful of people or you're door knocking, you build a list that are the most manageable for you and the most manageable based on your marketing. And not only your marketing, but what can you handle on the inbound, right? I know a lot of people that have sent out, tens of thousands of postcards, tons of calls come in, they're not handling the calls properly, stuff, falls through the cracks. So my message is on marketing, always do what you can handle and always do what you can handle on the inbound as well. There's nothing worse than really working hard on finding a good list, getting it out there, getting people to respond, and then you're just dropping the leads. I mean, literally, that's throwing money out the window. So make sure that you've mastered your marketing channels. Make sure you've handled the process on which that lead goes through in your business, right? When somebody calls you, who handles that? Is it you or is it a lead manager? Do you analyze it or do you have an acquisitions manager analyze it? And all of that process, are you handling the lead right? So you're not dropping it, so you're not forgetting it, so you're calling it back on time, right? Remember that, guys. So let's go here back into the county. Let's build a small list. I like to define my list with some base criteria. And this is here, single family, right? That's what most of us are looking for here in this group. Single family properties that are not on market. So I go to the MLS section, and these are all filter sets, different categories of filter sets to really start shrinking down the list of properties, right? 133,000 properties, little much to handle, right? But you want to get specific to the type of property that has the highest probability of wanting to sell, right? So we use this to kind of narrow down our initial search. Ownership info, I like to do individual. You can't search by corporate, you can't search by trust. These are going to be LLC results, so it's going to be homeowner LLC. Those are a little bit more difficult to find the owners, only because when you skip trace, which you can do with inside the platform, we can't provide LLC information. That's a corporation. They could be multiple owners. You have to go through a more,
Biz. You got to go to
yeah.
Biz, find and then go backwards. So
There you go. I took the words out of my mouth, Catherine. You got to work backwards for that. So for this exercise, we're just going to focus on individuals. Individuals will do years of ownership, right? You don't really want to worry about folks that just bought a property a year ago. And this might change, right? Because if you have high equity and they bought 3-4 years ago and they have a reason to sell, maybe that's a deal. But generally speaking, you want folks who have owned for a bit. I don't think I've ever bought a house in my career that was just recently bought within the last few years. I think everything's been at least 10 years plus in my experience, but that can be different for folks. So for this exercise, we'll just do 7 years and we'll add some equity, right? We want meat on the bone for this, right? So we'll do 50% to 99%. Right, so these are going to be folks that own a single family property, individual owners that own a single family property for at least 7 years, and they have equity, 50 to 99%, 24,000, that's still pretty big. So let's niche this down. Let's add liens. These are going to be involuntary liens. These are going to be liens like county liens, tax liens, mechanics liens, like somebody replaced a roof, got blown off during a hurricane, and they never paid the roofer. They stiffed them. Well, guess what? They have a lien on their home now. So we can go in here. Now we have 1,000 properties, much more manageable. We can actually click on one of these, and since
for you
sure.
really quick, why when you did the equity did you do 99 and not 100?
100 would be free and clear, and I like to define it. We could include it, but I like to define if I'm looking for stuff that still owes money versus stuff that doesn't owe money, right? And I've separated that just in my organizing of lists and how I attack them. Of course, you can combine all of that and target it how you will. And the cool thing about data is the way that you handle it, the way that you manipulate it in the rest of your business, that's kind of unique to your business. So there's multiple ways of doing things, right? We can filter down lists, really refine them on the front end like we're doing now, and then save them, now have them, or we can go very broad and then start filtering them after we have that list. So a couple different ways to go at lists, right? So this property that we pulled up here that had a lien has a lien tab attached because it has it's been identified to have a lien. It's going to tell you how much it is. In this case, they owe their HOA $793. They have a second lien for $1,500. Right? They owe money. Right? I mean, anybody that owes money is always going to be a potential seller. Right? Maybe something's going on over there, and you want to reach out and talk to them. So that's how we use this. Right? And this is a motivated person, I would say, based on the filters that we set. They've owned it for a while. They owe some money. And in this case, I see there's a pre-foreclosure tab attached, which is really interesting. So there's two flags attached to this person, right? They're in list pendants. Maybe they've cleared that up now. Notice list pendants. Let's see some information. So here what I see is they've been having some issues. This is a great example. They've been having some issues, it looks like, over the course of the last couple of years. You know, maybe going back about 7 years now, on and off. It looks like they've fallen on and off of foreclosure. They owe some money. I mean, this is the kind of person you want to reach out to and see, hey, what's going on? Are you interested in selling? Do you need some assistance?
Absolutely.
Great example.
How many records do you download per month for a list?
So the standard account, you can download up to 10,000. So you can come in here, customize these lists as needed, make them as big or small as you want to handle them, and then you can save them. So let's say for this example, we've created 1,000 of these liens. Come in here, select them, add to list, and we can create a new name for that list, right? And then we'll call it Catherine's list. Oh, I'm butchering your name here. Catherine's money list. How about that?
Whoop, whoop. I like that.
All right, so you save your list, and now it's going to tell you, this demo counts a 50,000 a month account. If you have a standard account, it's 10,000, and then when it's done saving, it's going to tell you how many you have left for the month. You can bump that up, guys. If you went heavy one month, you pulled off 10,000, and you need, I don't know, another 500, 1,000, 5,000 to complete what you were looking to maybe target for that month, that quarter. Well, you can bump it up. You can go into preferences, buy 2,500 more, buy 5,000 more if needed for that moment, or you could even bump up your account to a 50-month, 50,000 month, or even 100,000 tier. That's more of an enterprise account. Whatever you need, it's really flexible to your needs. But I'd say 10,000 is probably what most use, what most are comfortable pulling monthly for their marketing. And remember, it's 10,000 every month. So it's 120,000 leads a year if you're pulling the full amount monthly. It's a lot. So we save that. Let's go into my properties and we'll find that money list. Where did I just save it? Let's search. Money list, boom. So it's easier to search it there, so I don't have to scroll through that list. So here's the marketing list we just created. And here's our list, right? It's all the data that you need and maybe more than you need. So we can go into the gear. We can select the data columns that are important to us, that we really need, right? How many times you've gotten data and it has so many columns of stuff we don't really need, and we just select, columns B through AAA and just delete that. Well, here you can actually select the stuff that you really need for your export if you're going to export the data out, or the stuff that you need to see. Maybe you want the agent information, right? So you select that. Maybe you don't need some of this stuff in the property owners, right? Maybe you don't need the APN, not relative to what you're doing. And then you hit apply. It's going to reorganize these columns, and that information that you need or wanted is right there. Right, so we added that agent info. Now, if we scroll over, I don't know if this list is irrelevant, but if there was MLS agent information, all that would be here. We can call here. In this case, there was. This is the agent that represented that property. We can call them and say, hey, I have another property, or do you have a buyer for this property? We can then hit select, export, take the list out, do whatever it is that you guys normally do with it, put it into your marketing systems, your texting, your cold calling machine, print it out, whatever it is you're going to do, you can do that there, or you can keep it in here and manage it from here. Reorganize these columns, move them left and right. I was trying to show you. Yeah, sorry, my computer's a little slow, it seems. You can move these columns in the order that you need, and everything to the left of this line is anchored. So you can move stuff here to the left and that stuff won't go away. The stuff on the right will scroll left and right. So just showing you some ways to navigate through here, as well as the indication of what's going on with that list. So if you have an older list here, you can select it. It's going to tell you what's sold. Why do you want to continue to market the properties that just sold? No need. So you can come in here and clean out your list, figure out what's sold, and remove that from the marketing that you already have deployed, or just pull out that whole new fresh list and put it into your marketing. A couple different ways to look at it, but just a lot of indication on what's happening to your list, how to organize it, what's changing on it, and we also have the advanced list manager, which this account has available. It will pull records for you automatically. Pre-foreclosures happen daily, and that happens, and I know folks would usually pull that monthly or try to stay on it weekly and try to collect that data as it happens. Our advanced automated manager will actually pull that to your list automatically as it's meeting that filter criteria and notify you that it's available to pull to your list or do it automatically for you. So that's really cool as well. In addition to that, guys, you can do marketing. You can do your skip tracing. You can also go into campaigns and build out postcards and create whatever you need for that type of marketing as well. I see some questions are popping up, Catherine. What do we got over here?
Are property owners' names in all caps when downloaded, or do they convert? You can convert them in. I don't know how they.
Good question. It doesn't. Let me take a look at a list. I mean, if anything, so whoever asked that question, do you mean if that name, ownership name is in here and that happens to be in here in all caps, is that going to convert it to lower? Okay, maybe because of marketing. Is that where you're thinking that you don't want the all caps for what you're doing?
I would assume.
Yeah, that's something that you're going to have to do on your end. Unfortunately, it does export out all caps on the names. I believe. I don't think we've addressed that, but that's actually a good feedback there. I'll keep that in mind to add to our discussion at the end of the week meeting for us.
There is a formula that you can YouTube on how to do it inside of Excel when you do export it out. As in the meantime.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you can share that with the group, Catherine. I've used that. That's what what we do. My lead manager who organizes all this for us, she makes sure that is in the proper format, because you're right. Because the weird thing is getting a text message that has all caps names. It's going to look kind of weird. So you want to make sure that's in the correct format depending on what marketing you're doing. Mailing doesn't really matter. I like all caps anyway for names. And cold calling, again, it doesn't matter. It's really just that texting.
Yeah. Very cool.
Guys, I want to mention here before we run out of time, we have an app. Let me see how I can share this with you. Let's see if I can do this.
I'm so excited.
Bear with me. Maybe you can kill some time here in a second for me, Catherine, as I figure out how to pull my screen onto this chat with us.
So some other great things, and I think Paul mentioned a few of them at the beginning, but it is national. So for the realtors that are on this call, I'm also a realtor. I'm part of the Sarasota Manatee Association. We have access to the Tampa Association, but we don't necessarily have access to the Naples and Fort Myers Association and their data unless we join those separate ones as an addition. PropStream going into it, which it's very comparable in price for what I pay for my MLS dues. You can see all of it nationwide. You have what, 98% of the country talking to it? There's a couple of small towns still, or did we get those added?
I mean, we have vast coverage. In occasion, there's areas that it's limited in just the data that's pushed out of there. Those limitations are what we have to deal with. We can't make data up. We can't make data that's not available to us, but vastly throughout the country, the information you guys need to run your comps or get the property info, it's all there for you.
And the perfect example, I'm in Tennessee. For the people who were on earlier, I was looking at a couple of properties around my family's home, and I could do that through PropStream, which I wouldn't be able to do that as a traditional agent outside of using Zillow or one of those type of platforms. So it's a great tool. The other really neat thing that I personally like about it is it pulls the tax information and those recordings, as well as he showed at the beginning, where if you're an MLS and you're just looking on the agent, that's really the only space that you have unless you go through Realist and IMAP. So I like the fact that we can get in and see very easily the cash transactions, because those are the investors buying most of the time, where it's not going through the MLS, where we're doing off markets. You can really see what, if you want to believe in competition, what your competition is doing, or what other investors are doing, so that you can partner and connect with those people, and you don't have to just work off the MLS. But if you're not calling your comps and talking to those agents, hey, what feedback do you have? Was it an investment property? I mean, that's the perfect way to build cash buyers for new investors, because they're working with agents. They've already done it, and just be upfront with them. Hey, make sure you add your fee on top of it. I don't want you to lose money, or whatever you have worked out with your investors on how this transaction is going to happen. But this is what I need to make. And every agent that I've talked to, there's some that aren't super easy, but there's so many more that are. So definitely utilize that. You're doing the work anyway, so make a quick, maybe 30-minute call block to call those people, and continue to do that. Paul, you need to be, are you on mobile? I need to make you a presenter to share your screen. Did that work, Paul? But we don't have audio. Paul, it doesn't sound like there's any audio coming from your end, but I am so excited about what you're showing on the screen right now.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
All right, perfect. Sorry, I'm kind of trying to work on two microphones here to make this work. So let me get back to PropStream. All right, guys. So when you can, let's see. Here we go. This is a beta version. So as I show you, this might be a little bit glitchy. In just a matter of a couple of days, our live version that we've been just grinding on the last couple of months will be pushed out. What I just showed you on the other screen on desktop, the ability to find properties, get the details, that's all available to you, right? So you can be out on appointments and pull this out of your pocket and do literally what I just showed you without having to pinch and zoom like you used to all this time with PropStream. So there's a couple of ways to search for properties. You can do it by address, standard, that's mainly how we do it. Or you could do geolocate, right? You can actually geolocate where you are and click on the map and identify the property that you're looking at across the street and figure out what's going on there. But let's start with address. Let's go back to Ocala. Apparently Ocala is my favorite. Let's go log in.
So, Paul, is there a quick way on the geolocate to flag properties for like driving for dollars?
Yes. So we have, if you look on the bottom, you see where it says drive down there in the middle. So drive is basically a driving for dollars function in here, where you can just turn it on and then it'll route your course. You can actually set the filters right from list building. You can define that and actually have drive you to those points. So if you're looking for properties for liens or pre-foreclosures, and drive for it that way, as opposed to just driving for a visual capture of driving for dollars, those beat up looking homes. So there's a couple different cool things there. So let's go. I just drew in this address here. And again, here is the full details, the full shebang of what you can search for, or you can find on a property. So here we have detail. We can scroll up and down on the bottom, right? All the details, tax, recording, seller info. You can also rotate. Let's see if this rotates on the screen. Yes, looks actually better this way. And then we can open it up, and then we have much more information. If you thought it was too tight down below when we're looking, now you get the full owner's name down below, all the information above. The little on the top right is the little heart. That's your way of saving it. You can also add statuses. This is brand new to PropStream. We didn't have this before. So when you're prospecting, you're just going through it. It's not a CRM alternative. Well, it's not a CRM replacement, but it's a way to just mark or indicate something with these properties that you look at or analyze or just review, right? So you can go in here and choose one of the, let's see if this works in this.
So we could flag these as active project to call because those are obviously investors rehabbing, or flag as a dig driving for dollar, correct?
Or anything, or you just have a general interest on a property, right? You want to just search it more later, look at it. You want to follow up on it, or you called and you could skip trace them. You reached out to them off your cell phone. He's like, yeah, I'm not interested. Anything you need, you can just basically define it now, which is really cool. In addition to adding property tags, right? So maybe maybe these three examples are something that you're looking for, or maybe you're looking for blue tarps, right? You can go into edit and create blue tarp, right? And this is definitely a good flag for or tag for Florida properties, right? So many blue tarps all over the place. Notes, maybe you like researched it, you're like, this is a crappy house, it's a 1-1 in a bad area, doesn't make sense. You can make that note. Maybe it's something you look at in a year or 6 months later, and you review your note based on where you were at that point in your business, right? Assign to team members, if you have the team member add-on here, which you can add, team members on desktop and also on mobile, you could assign it to people. So maybe you have an acquisitions manager, a lead manager, whatever it is, boom, just assign it to them, and then you can tell them, hey, work it, comp it, or do whatever you need to do along the chain of what we do. Let's go. Sorry, guys, I'm losing you.
There we go.
Back in the details, liens tells you what's going on, tax information, transaction history, like we mentioned before, right? Most importantly, comps. If we're on the road, we want to start comping. If we go to an appointment, sometimes the one across the street ends up being property we look at. Now you can do it, right? You don't have to wait to get back to the office to run your comps. Here you have filters, right? Here are our filters, which is really cool. We have the ability to just quickly select 6 months, 3 months, instead of clicking 6 times on the calendar. We can set our custom set range or square footage, same thing that we had in desktop, right? Define all that criteria, plus or minus, maybe distance is too big, the default of 1 mile. And then we hit apply. This is the one. And then we have also here our layout. Maybe we want to see the sale amount. Maybe we don't want to see the property type. Maybe we want to move some of this stuff around. APN doesn't make sense right over there. So we take it away, hit apply. It's going to reset these columns.
Cool.
And here's your information, right? And you can also look at your image, look at that picture, details of that property, and so on. And our map, obviously, are the basic functions you guys have come to get used to with maps, opportunity info, all the skid tracing, all that stuff's available. Here's a number if you want to text them directly from the phone. What else do we have in here? Postcards, and then directions, right? Maybe you want to drive to the property. It's probably a long drive for me here. But it might take me 34 hours there to get that offer. But here we could also, again, share to our external contact. Maybe I want to send it to you, Catherine, because you're in Florida, or we'll be able to share it to our team members in this section. So this is the details, right? So everything you guys have gotten used to using in desktop is here in your pocket. With addition to, let's go to geolocate. Right now, this is in my neighborhood over here. Right, we can start looking, maybe there's a property you saw while you're walking a dog, so you can click on it as you're walking around and it'll load up that property. It's going to tell you, let's look at it. All right, it's going to tell you that property, pictures if it's on market or if it was recently on market, and then you can look at the comps and do what you got to do to figure out what's going on.
Cool.
Let's look at drive. Real quick, last thing, just drive. Like maybe you want to set your filters. I want to drive to properties that are not on market, that are single family with equity, that have liens and pre-foreclosures, right? Maybe that's my activity for the afternoon and for this week. Set that filter, I won't do it here, but you set that up, hit apply, and then keep open, right? So now it's going to set on the map those locations and you're off.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
Sorry guys, this is the demo account. Promise I won't be doing this to you guys when you get the live version. But I'll end that there. But yeah, that's going to be your driving for dollars function. That's going to be literally driving for dollars, not just for beat up homes, right? That's what we've always done. We've looked for those, beat up looking homes with tarps and long grass and newspapers in the front lawn. You don't just have to drive for that. Now you can actually define other criteria that's invisible by sight and add that to your map and just drive to it.
So I have a question for you on that. Will it record kind of the route that you're driving so that
Yeah.
you don't keep repeating the same places?
Yes, it'll record drive right here. You see on or off?
Oh,
You can
okay.
select that, and then it'll record it. And then when you're done, it'll give you the option of do you want to save it or not?
That's awesome. When you email to external people, does it matter if they have PropStream or not?
Well, yeah, because if they don't have PropStream, they're not going to be able to look at it. But they will have, if they click on a link, it'll give them the option to join and get a PropStream account so that they can see what you're sending them. So yeah, that's handy if you're working with somebody in another state. Maybe they're unfamiliar with PropStream, they're not using it in their business, and you have a lead you want them to work that's generally in their area. Maybe they don't have MLS, but now boom, they have PropStream in their pocket. They'll have that link and they can sign up and see exactly what you're looking at.
Yeah, perfect. Very cool. Are there any questions? Does anybody have any questions?
Guys, this is going to be ready for you guys any minute. So you know the truth. Basically, what we're working for is just approval from the iOS App Store to put it up there. Once it's up there, it goes out to iOS and Android. So both versions are going live at the same time. We're really excited about this because it is 2020, right? And everything has an app. We've been a little bit behind the 8 ball on this, but here it is now, and please use it. If you're using PropStream now, it'll definitely be a complement to what you do right now with it. But if you're not using PropStream, and this is definitely going to be something that will be helpful for you. I'm sure you guys are using a combination of multiple apps anyway right now. This is just one great way to combine it all in one and simply just have it in your pocket ready to go and do deals.
Yep, and I know that you're going to post something as soon as it is live. So once I see that go up on Facebook and other places, I'll share it back out to our network. We do have, if you're not using PropStream, we do have a 7-day free trial. And it is trial.propstream.com/ppmp. And I'll put the link in the chat box. trial.propstream.com/ppmp. It'll give you 7 days to try it out. You guys can always wait until they go live to test it out if you would like, so that you get to use the app as well. But you can pull those list styles that Paul was just talking about during that trial. I know that you're going to fall in love with it. I've fallen in love with it. I'm pretty sure that everyone I talk to that tries it. You don't have microphone, Paul. That row. I do too. I love the one-stop shop. What is the initial and ongoing cost for PropStream? Okay, perfect. That works. For people that aren't seeing the pops chat or the chat pops up, it's $97 a month after that 7-day trial. Unlimited property search and 10,000 downloads per month. So those lists that we were pulling and showing you, and then you can skip trace for the phone numbers and email addresses on top of that. So app is free. Perfect, guys. Does anyone else have any questions? Let's see here. No upgrade up charges unless you add team members. Do you have a few minutes to discuss list automator? Okay, perfect. Yes. So my email address is on your things. If you don't have it, it's Catherine@reilivesrq.com. Shoot them over to me and I will get the answers from Paul and email them back. If you guys do have any other questions, otherwise use the trial.propstream.com/ppmp to get your free 7-day trial and test it out, because it's definitely fun and it's great looking at a larger area and open markets. Perfect. There's no other questions. We'll let Paul get on with his day. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to see the app when it comes out. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day and be productive and go buy some houses. Bye, y'all.